The starship Eclipse drifted silently through the void, its sleek, obsidian hull reflecting the faint light of a distant sun. On board, Commander Lyra Voss stood at the observation deck, her luminescent blue eyes scanning the endless expanse of space. She was a Zolarian, a species known for their advanced technology and pacifist nature. Her silver skin shimmered faintly under the soft glow of the ship's interior lights, and her long, flowing hair, a cascade of iridescent strands, seemed to move as if caught in an invisible breeze. Lyra had been sent on a mission to study a newly discovered planet on the fringes of the galaxy. The planet, designated as Kepler 452b, was unique. It was teeming with life, but not just any life, intelligent life. The Zolarians had detected signs of a civilization that had reached a level of technological advancement comparable to their own, but with one striking difference: they were a species driven by emotion, instinct, and, most intriguingly, courage. As the Eclipse entered the planet's atmosphere, Lyra felt a strange sensation, one she had never experienced before. It was a mix of curiosity and apprehension. The Zolarians had long abandoned such primal emotions, relying instead on logic and reason. But here, on this planet, she could sense something raw, something powerful. The ship landed in a remote area, far from the bustling cities of the planet's inhabitants. Lyra stepped out, her breath catching as she took in the sight of the lush, green landscape. The air was thick with the scent of vegetation, and the sounds of wildlife filled her ears. It was a stark contrast to the sterile, controlled environment of her homeworld. As she ventured further, she encountered a group of humans. They were unlike anything she had ever seen. Their skin was a myriad of colors, their eyes filled with a fire that she couldn't quite understand. They were armed, but not with the advanced weaponry of the Zolarians. Instead, they carried primitive tools, blades, bows, and arrows. One of the humans, a tall man with broad shoulders and a rugged face, stepped forward. His name was Ethan Drake, a leader among his people. He eyed Lyra with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice firm but not hostile. Lyra hesitated. She had been trained to observe, to study, but not to interact. Yet, something about this man compelled her to respond. "I am Lyra Voss," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I come in peace." Ethan studied her for a moment before nodding. "You're not from around here, are you?" Lyra shook her head. "No. I am from a distant world. I have come to learn about your people." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Learn about us? Why?" "Because you are unique," Lyra replied. "Your species possesses something that mine has long forgotten." "And what's that?" Ethan asked, his tone skeptical. "Courage," Lyra said simply. Ethan chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound. "Courage, huh? Well, you've come to the right place. We've got plenty of that." As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the landscape, Lyra felt a strange sense of belonging. She had only just arrived, but already, she knew that this planet, these humans, would change her forever. The days turned into weeks, and Lyra found herself increasingly drawn to the humans, especially Ethan. She observed their daily lives, their struggles, and their triumphs. She marveled at their ability to face danger head-on, to fight for what they believed in, even when the odds were against them. One evening, as the campfire crackled and the humans shared stories of their exploits, Lyra felt a pang of something she couldn't quite identify. It was a longing, a desire to be a part of their world, to experience the emotions that drove them. Ethan noticed her silence and sat down beside her. "You've been quiet tonight," he said. "Something on your mind?" Lyra hesitated before speaking. I envy you," she admitted. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Envy us? Why?" "Because you feel," Lyra said. "You experience emotions in a way that I cannot. My people have long since abandoned such things. We live by logic and reason, but I see now that there is more to life than that. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. Emotions can be a double-edged sword, he said. They can drive you to do great things, but they can also lead you astray. It's not always easy. But it's real, Lyra said. It's alive. Ethan smiled. Yeah, it is. As the night wore on, Lyra found herself opening up to Ethan in a way she never had with anyone before. She told him about her world, her people, and her mission. In return, Ethan shared his own story, his struggles, his losses, and his hopes for the future. By the time the fire had died down, Lyra felt a deep connection to Ethan. She realized that she was no longer just an observer, she was a part of this world, a part of their lives. But as the days passed, Lyra began to notice something troubling. The humans were facing a threat, one that they couldn't overcome on their own. A rival faction, known as the Vorgons, had been encroaching on their territory, and the humans were outnumbered and outgunned. Lyra knew that she had to do something. She couldn't stand by and watch as the people she had come to care for were destroyed. But intervening would mean going against everything she had been taught, everything she believed in. As she stood on the edge of the camp, looking out at the horizon, Ethan approached her. "You're worried," he said. Lyra nodded. "I am. Your people are in danger, and I don't know what to do." Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to do anything," he said. "This is our fight." "But I can help," Lyra insisted. "I have technology, knowledge that could turn the tide." Ethan shook his head. "This isn't your war, Lyra. You've already done more than enough by being here." Lyra looked into Ethan's eyes and saw the determination, the courage that had drawn her to him in the first place. She realized that she couldn't stand by and do nothing. She had to help, no matter the cost. "I'm staying," she said firmly. "I'm going to fight with you." Ethan hesitated before nodding. "All right," he said. "But know this, once you step onto that battlefield, there's no turning back." Lyra smiled. "I know." The day of the battle arrived, and the air was thick with tension. The humans had gathered their forces, armed with whatever weapons they could muster. Lyra stood among them, her Zolarian technology integrated into their arsenal. She had modified their weapons, enhanced their defenses, and provided them with strategies that could give them an edge. As the Vorgons approached, Lyra felt a surge of adrenaline, a sensation she had never experienced before. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. She glanced at Ethan, who gave her a reassuring nod. "Stay close to me," he said. "And remember, we fight as one." Lyra nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never been in a battle before, but she was determined to see it through. The Vorgons charged, their war cries echoing across the battlefield. The humans stood their ground, their faces set with determination. Lyra activated her energy shield, deflecting the incoming attacks as she moved alongside Ethan. The battle was fierce, with both sides suffering heavy losses. Lyra's technology proved to be a game-changer, but it wasn't enough to guarantee victory. The Vorgons were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless. As the fight raged on, Lyra found herself face-to-face with a Vorgon commander. He was massive, his armor gleaming in the sunlight. He sneered at her, his voice dripping with contempt. "You don't belong here, Zolarian," he growled. "This is not your fight." Lyra stood her ground, her eyes blazing with determination. "You're wrong," she said. "This is my fight now." The Vorgon commander lunged at her, but Lyra was ready. She activated her energy blade, parrying his attack with precision. The two clashed, their weapons sparking as they fought. Despite her lack of experience, Lyra held her own. She moved with a grace and agility that surprised even herself. But the Vorgon commander was a seasoned warrior, and he quickly gained the upper hand. Just as it seemed that Lyra was about to be overwhelmed, Ethan appeared, his sword slicing through the air. He engaged the Vorgan commander, giving Lyra a chance to regroup. Together, they fought side by side, their movements perfectly synchronized. It was as if they had been fighting together for years. The Vorgan commander was no match for their combined strength, and with a final, powerful strike, Ethan brought him down. The battlefield fell silent as the Vorgans, seeing their commander defeated, began to retreat. The humans cheered, their voices filled with triumph. Lyra looked at Ethan, her chest heaving as she caught her breath. "We did it," she said, a smile breaking across her face. Ethan grinned. "Yeah, we did." But their victory was bittersweet. The cost had been high, with many lives lost. As they stood amidst the aftermath, Lyra felt a deep sense of sorrow. She had never experienced loss before, and it weighed heavily on her. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "We knew the risks," he said. "But we fought for what we believe in. That's what matters." Lyra nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "I understand now," she said. "This is what courage is. It's not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it, no matter the cost." Ethan smiled. "Welcome to the human race, Lyra." The days following the battle were somber. The humans mourned their fallen, their grief palpable in the air. Lyra, too, felt the weight of their loss. She had come to care deeply for these people, and their pain was her pain. As she walked through the camp, she noticed the resilience of the humans. Despite their grief, they were already beginning to rebuild, to prepare for whatever challenges lay ahead. It was a testament to their strength, their indomitable spirit. Ethan approached her, his expression serious. "We need to talk," he said. Lyra nodded, following him to a quiet spot away from the camp. They sat down, the silence between them heavy with unspoken words. "What's on your mind?" Lyra asked, breaking the silence. Ethan sighed. "The Vorgans won't stop," he said. "They'll be back, and next time, they'll be even stronger. We need to be ready." Lyra nodded. "I understand. But what can we do? We're outnumbered, outgunned." Ethan looked at her, his eyes filled with determination. "We need your help, Lyra. Your technology, your knowledge, it's the only way we can stand a chance." Lyra hesitated. She had already gone against her people's principles by intervening in the battle. To continue down this path would mean fully committing to the humans' cause, potentially putting herself at odds with her own kind. But as she looked into Ethan's eyes, she knew that she couldn't turn away. These people had become her family, and she would do whatever it took to protect them. "All right," she said. "I'll help you. But we need to be smart about this. We can't just rely on technology. We need to outthink them." Ethan nodded. "Agreed. So, what's the plan?" Lyra thought for a moment before speaking. "We need to gather intelligence. Find out what the Vorgans are planning, where they're weakest. Then, we strike where they least expect it." Ethan smiled. "Sounds like a plan. Let's get to work." Over the next few weeks, Lyra and Ethan worked tirelessly to prepare for the next battle. They trained the humans, improved their defenses, and developed new strategies. Lyra's technology played a crucial role, but it was the humans' courage and determination that truly made the difference. As the days passed, Lyra found herself growing closer to Ethan. They spent countless hours together, planning, training, and sharing their thoughts. She found herself opening up to him in ways she could never have imagined. Ethan's strength wasn't just physical, it was in the way he led, the way he inspired the others around him. He was more than a leader to her, he had become a companion, someone she could trust with her deepest thoughts. As the days stretched into weeks, Lyra found herself fully immersed in the human way of life. She learned to appreciate the nuances of their emotions, their resilience, and, most importantly, their capacity for hope even in the darkest of times. It was a lesson she could never have learned on her own, locked away in the sterile logic of her people's world. One evening, as they stood together overlooking the newly fortified camp, Ethan turned to Lyra with a question that lingered in the air between them. "Lyra," he began softly, "what happens after we win this war? Do you go back to your world? Will you leave us?" The question struck Lyra deeply. She had spent so much time thinking about the mission, about what was best for the humans, that she hadn't allowed herself to think about her own future. The answer wasn't simple. She had responsibilities to her people, obligations to her mission. But every moment spent with Ethan and the humans had made her reconsider the path she had set for herself. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I never imagined I'd feel this. But I don't want to leave yet, not when there's still so much to fight for. You've shown me something I didn't even know existed, this raw, unfiltered courage. I'm afraid I can't walk away from it now." Ethan's eyes softened, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Then stay," he said simply. "You've already become a part of us. We'll face whatever comes next together." Lyra met his gaze, and for the first time in her life, she didn't feel the weight of logic and reason pulling her away from her emotions. She felt free. But even as their bond deepened, the shadow of the Vorgons loomed ever larger. The battle they had won was only a temporary reprieve. The real fight was still ahead, and it was a fight they would not be able to face alone. The calm before the storm was brief. As Lyra and Ethan continued to strategize, the signs of the Vorgons' impending attack became undeniable. The enemy had regrouped, their numbers swelling with reinforcements. They were no longer just a threat, they were a looming certainty. The humans and their allies would have to make their stand or risk losing everything. Lyra spent the days leading up to the battle working tirelessly. She had designed new weapons, sharpened their defenses, and orchestrated a series of covert operations to scout the Vorgons' movements. Yet, despite her advanced technology, she knew the real strength lay in the courage of the humans around her. One final night before the battle, Lyra and Ethan stood at the edge of the cliff overlooking the valley below. The winds were cool, and the stars glittered overhead, a reminder of how vast the universe truly was. "I never thought I'd be part of something like this," Lyra admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Before I came here, I thought I knew everything about myself, about my people. But here, with you, I've learned that there's so much I don't understand. So much I need to learn." Ethan turned to her, his expression serious but warm. "I've never seen anything like you, Lyra. Your people, they're smart, sure. But you've got something else. You're not afraid to trust in something bigger than yourself, something deeper. That's what makes you different." Lyra shook her head, a small smile on her lips. "Maybe it's you who's taught me that. I used to think fear was something to avoid, but now I see that it's part of the process. Fear doesn't make you weak, Ethan. It makes you strong, because it's the courage to face it that defines you." Ethan reached out, his hand brushing against hers. "Then let's face it together. This fight, it's our fight now. And we'll win it, no matter what." The morning of the final battle arrived, and the air was thick with tension. The humans stood at the ready, their faces set with a grim determination. Lyra stood beside them, a visible symbol of unity between two worlds, two species that, until recently, had never imagined working together. The Vorgons arrived as expected, their massive warships darkening the sky. But the humans weren't intimidated. With Lyra's guidance, they launched a full-scale counterattack, using every tactic they could muster to exploit the enemy's weaknesses. The battle was long and brutal. Blades clashed, weapons fired, and explosions echoed across the valley. Lyra fought alongside the humans, her energy blade cutting through the air with deadly precision, her shield deflecting incoming blasts. But even with her advanced technology, the battle was far from over. In the midst of the chaos, Lyra saw Ethan fighting his way toward her, cutting down a group of Vorgan soldiers. His eyes met hers across the battlefield, a silent understanding passing between them. They were in this together, no matter what. The turning point came when Lyra managed to infiltrate the Vorgan flagship. Using her knowledge of their technology, she disabled their power grid, crippling their defenses. With their ships disabled, the humans were able to strike the final blow. The Vorgan forces, seeing their defeat, retreated, their morale shattered. The humans had won. Against all odds, they had prevailed. As the dust settled and the battlefield grew quiet, Lyra stood beside Ethan, both of them covered in dirt and blood, but victorious. "We did it," Lyra said, her voice hoarse. Ethan smiled, exhaustion in his eyes. "Yeah, we did. And we couldn't have done it without you." Lyra turned to him, her heart swelling with a mixture of pride and gratitude. "No. This was all of us. We fought together, and that's what made us strong." As the survivors celebrated, Lyra found herself standing at the edge of the camp once more. The stars overhead seemed brighter than ever before. She had come to this planet as an outsider, a cold observer. But now, she was a part of something much greater than herself. She had found family, purpose, and, above all, courage. And as she gazed at Ethan standing nearby, his smile lighting up his face despite the fatigue, Lyra knew one thing for certain. Her place was here, with the humans. The fight for the future wasn't over, but for the first time, she was no longer alone. Together, they would face whatever came next.